Mr. Lange. How are you?
Wonderful, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Cold today, huh?
You know that now it's the Tzurba, right?
Yeah, right. I know that.
When,
I learned. I finished.
Do you remember the page last week? Hi,
Yeah,
Abe.
sure. It's page 185. Recycling mitzvah objects. Further E of it, page one. I think we're 185 now.
Yeah, but we're not going to read those.
Well, then that's whatever he says. Let's see.
So we go into 197.
Yeah, I guess so. 197. Yeah. Downing the Talis Cotton and the Talis Cotton. Yeah, I guess so.
Hi, Ernie.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Bernie. Hi, Abe.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, Abe. Hi,
Hello.
Saul is here.
Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Okay, we're on page 197.
All right.
In the previous shiurim, we studied the halachas concerning what makes a pair of tzitzis kosher. In this year, we focus on the standard procedure, how to put on a talit katan and a talit katan, as well as some halachot related to the size of the garment. So first of all, the proper position while donning tzitzis. The Torah writes that one must don the tzitzis. We're talking about here both a talit gadol and a talit katan while standing. And the Beis Yosef adds that one must stand as well while reciting the bracha. So umiyad achar netilas yadav yisatef betzitzis me'umad. The Torah says after netilas yadayim you should put on your tzitzis and you should do it standing up. The Beis Yosef in his comment there says v'taimim mishum degomer lachem lachem misfiras ha'omer. It says lachem by tzitzis. It says lachem. It says by usfartem lachem by sfiras ha'omer, and it says by omer bakamo, which means standing. Perush bakoma. So just like sfiras ha'omer has to be done standing, so tzitzis has to be done standing. By the way, virtually every mitzvah has to be done standing. It says the same thing by lulav. Ulekachtem lachem bayom harishon. The same hekesh is made. Lachem for kamo. Therefore, when you shake the lulav, you do it standing. When you put on tefillin, you put on your tefillin standing.
Hard to do it sitting though. Right.
But we'll see. Virtually Kiddush, we do standing. Virtually every, I don't know the mitzvah that we do sitting, except for Birchas Hamazon. Virtually every mitzvah that Rosh Kiyas Shoifer is done standing from the same hekesh, kamo, from Sfiras ha'omer. We'll get to tefillin. We're going to learn about tefillin. We'll see what the Sephardic position is regarding their shita. The Beis Yosef explains that the word lachem, appearing in the context of tzitzis and sfiras ha'omer, counting the omer, teaches that just as one recites sfiras ha'omer while standing, because of kama koma, so too one dons the tzitzis while standing. This limud is not learned in the Gemara, but it operates similar to a Talmudic zerushav. The Rosh mentions the derivation of standing while reciting sfiras ha'omer based on the interpretation of kama koma, which is not stated anywhere in the Gemara. That when you bench the sfiras ha'omer, you do it standing. The Ton Rabbanan bekamo tachel lispor, al tikra bekamo ela bekoma, standing. So Walter, we're on page 198.
Thank you.
The Shulchan Aruch codifies the obligation to stand while donning tzitzis as well as while reciting the bracha. Just like the obligation to stand while reciting brachas before performing other mitzvahs. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Yisatef b'tzitzis v'yivarech me'umin. The Mishnah Berurah adds that this requirement to stand applies only lechatchila. However, one still fulfills the mitzvah, even if the tzitzis were put on or the bracha was cited while sitting. V'hu rak lechatchila. The b'diavad yotza b'shtem b'chol skavim. It means your yotzei the mitzvah of tzitzis, even if you put them on while you were sitting, and even if you made the bracha while sitting, it doesn't negate the mitzvah. It's just lechatchila, you should do it standing. It would seem that according to Mishnah Berurah, if one cannot stand, let's say you're in bed, you're sick, you can put the tzitzis on and make the bracha while sitting. Okay, what about atifa? From the text of the bracha, when donning a talis, it seems that an important component of the mitzvah is atifa, wrapping. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher k'shem mitzvotzav v'tzivanu litatef b'tzitzis. To wrap oneself in tzitzis. What is the nature of this requirement of atifa? Does this simply refer to covering the majority of one's body with tzitzis? Or does this mean that one must wrap the tzitzis around one's head as well when you put them on? We will see in the continuation of the shiur that the notion of atifa is more logical when putting on a talit gadol, though it may be relevant as well when donning tzitzis, a talis cotton. Similarly, we will see that the text of the bracha of Lisatef is certainly recited when donning a talit, though according to some opinions, it's also recited when you put on tzitzis. And we will deal with that tonight as well. The Tur cites a machlokes between the Gaonim and the Balaitur. Says the Tur, the Seder Atifaso, Pirshu HaGaonim, Atifas Ishmaelim, like the Arabs wrap, they put whatever those things around their head. Shehi Atifa Gemura. It's a complete wrapping, including your head. Ubalaitur Kosov Delobin and Kulai. The Balaitur argued with the Gaonim and say you don't need, atifa doesn't include wrapping your head. There's people who put on their clothing, they don't necessarily wrap around their head. Sometimes they do cover there, they put a hood. Sometimes they don't. So it's machlokes Gaonim and the Balaitur to understand what is meant by atifa. According to the Gaonim, atifa concerning tzitzis requires one to wrap the tzitzis around one's head, which is called atifas yishmaelim, the manner that the Arabs wear their head garments. On the other hand, the Balaitur holds that atifa is defined as putting on the tzitzis in the same manner as other clothing, meaning wrapping the garment around the body. However, wrapping around the head is unnecessary. Welcome, Yaakov. So we're on page 199. We're dealing with the issue of when we say the bracha of lisatef batzitzis, does it mean that we have to put the talis, whether it's a talis gadol or a talis cotton, around our head, or that's how the Gaonim learned, versus the Balaitur who said it's not required to put it around your head. The Beis Yosef explains the basis for the machlokas. The Gemara in Moed Katan describes the concept of atifas yishmaelim as wrapping one's head and neck in a garment similar to a long veil. Such wrapping is required by the Gemara for an avel, a mourner, during the shiva of a deceased relative, as well as by a mitzora, after contracting leprosy and isolating himself. Part of the din was to wrap yourself up in an atifa manner, both as a mitzora or as an avel. The Beis Yosef offers two possible explanations for the machlokes between the Gaonim and the Balaitur. His first suggestion is as follows. According to the Gaonim, the atifa necessary for putting on a talis also refers to atilis ishmaelim, which must include wrapping around one's head and neck when putting it on. Though it doesn't have to stay there after you put it on, but when you first put it on, you make the bracha, it should be there for a short time. According to Bala Iter, atifa concerning a talis differs from the atifas ishmaelim in the Gemara, and wrapping the talis in that manner is not required as part of the mitzvah. Let's see the Beis Yosef inside. Nearest Shetaimam, the reason for the Gaonim is midrachinan lisate v'tzitzis. The fact that the nusach of the bracha uses the word lisate is k'diisa b'perek basra d'tosefta the brachas. Alma ituf ba'inon. You require ituf. U'perek elu megalchin moed cotton. Omer Shmuel kol atifa she'ena katifas ishmaelim in atifa. That means if you're going to do atifa, it's got to be atifas ishmaelim. And mochi Rav Nachman at goy v'dekana. Rav Nachman explained that you got to cover your head except, your beard. Nira shetamu midisa b'perek elu megalchin. The Rav Palig alei di Shmuel. Rav argued with Shmuel. Umashma desfir le datifas arosh afal pi she'ena katifas ishmaelim avi atifa. Rav held that, not like Shmuel, that atifa doesn't necessarily mean that you have to cover your head. The kaimelan to be sur halacha karav l'gabi Shmuel. Regards to how do we paskin, only regarding Isser is the halacha like Rav. So the Beis Yosef then offers a second explanation from Machlokes based on the Mahari Abuav. V'Rabbeinu Agadol Mahari Abuav Zal Kosav Shetaimoi, that the Bala Yitr says the lo beina atifas ishmaelim el gabi avelis, that the concept of atifas ishmaelim doesn't move over from the realm of avelis over to talis. Avagabi tzitzis shatorah chayva iso biksus shodem iskase. The Torah required tzitzis to be put on garments that we cover our bodies with. Kacha yechiu v'nemar shalashon la'atif lashon kisuyu b'zayin, and that's it. The Bala Yitr holds that his ituf requires covering your body, but not necessarily your head. So according to the first explanation, Beis Yosef, for the opinion of the Bala Yitr, Rav disagrees with Shmuel and holds that wrapping a garment around the head, even without atifas arosh, suffices even for avelis, though the head must be covered by the garment. By contrast, according to the Gaonim, Shmuel's opinion regarding atifas ishmael within avelis is accepted by all. According to the explanation of the Mari Avluov, all agree that the halacha concerning avelis follows Rav, and that Rav requires a mourner to perform atifas ishmaelim. The machlokas pertains as to whether hilchos tzitzis is equivalent to hilchos avelis. The Gaonim interpret the language of atifa within the bracha of litatif b'tzitzis exactly like the context of avelis, which is atifas ishmaelim, while the Iter distinguish between atifa of the talis and atifa of mourning. And atifa therefore only requires wrapping the garment around the body, but not around the head. So after the tour in the Beis Yosef, how did the Shulchan Aruch paskin? The Shulchan Aruch ruled in accordance with the Bala Yitr, the way understood by the Ma'ari Abuav, in principle, that one need not wrap the tzitzis around one's head. Nevertheless, Rav Yosef Kar concludes that it's proper to cover one's head with a talis. Seder atifaso kederach b'nei adam shemiskasim b'ksusam v'oiskim v'mlachtam. It's like people putting on their clothes going to work, which does not include putting something over your head. Pamim b'kisui arosh, pamim b'gilui arosh. But v'nachon shikasa rosh b'talis. He says it's preferable that you should cover your head. So the Mishnah Brura explains that atif of the talis means wrapping them around one's body. Therefore, there's no obligation to wrap them around one's face, and one does not even fulfill the obligation of atifa by covering the face alone without the body. Says the Mishnah Brura. So they paskin like the Mari Abuav very clearly, that covering your body with the talis defines ituf. V'hu ikar ha'ituf. V'ovrei drachim shemenichim ha'talis k'shum ha'kufel. Travelers who put the talit when it's folded, wrap it around their shoulders. U'mishalshalin saviv tzavar mal kitfeim. They put it around their shoulders, and they don't cover their body. So fine, if you want to cover your head, fine, but just make sure you're covering your body as well. So since the halacha is in accordance with the Balaitur, as understood by the Maria Abuab, the reason for the Shulchan Aruch's recommendation to cover one's head with the talis seems to be for a different reason. The Mishnah Berurah explains that it serves as an additional means of demonstrating one's submissiveness to Hashem and strengthening one's Yiras Shamayim. Another related subject, beyond the purview of the Shir, concerns whether one who is not married should wear a talis gadol. According to many poskim, he should indeed wear a talis. And this is the accepted custom among Sfardim and some Ashkenazim, particularly the Yekes, though many still do not perform atif or wearing the talis over their head until after marriage. On the other hand, many Ashkenazim, most non-Yekes, follow the position of the Maril that it's customary for those who are not married not to wear talis gadol. And that's why a chassan is given a talis gadol when he gets married and starts putting on a talis gadol when he's married. So that's nice background on that minig. Mishnah Berurah says, "Shekisui zeh," covering your head with a talis, machnia leva adam, sort of makes a person's heart low. Umevi olidei yiras shamayim. The Mishnah Berurah continues to write that because of this reason, some poskim, such as the Bach, write that the talis must ideally remain on one's head from the beginning of the tefillah until the end, and at a minimum, for the amount of time it takes to walk 4 amos. Because of Abach, the tzorach she'atalis al rosha metchilas atfilat sofa. Al kolpanim yamod kach me'utef lefachos k'dei hiluch dal amos. So when you put on your talis, we're going to see that in detail, and you have the minig of atifas yishmaelim to cover your head. You should remain in that pose for the amount of time that it takes to walk daled amos, and then you fulfilled at least this portion of what the Mishnah Berurah says, that you should put it over your head at least daled amos. Now,
what's the definition of a talis? Can be, I mean, I know we
what's
all
the
have
definition of what?
A talis gadol. Can it be anything other than what we use right now? Could it have, let's say, an overcoat? He puts this on an overcoat and use that as a talis gadol.
No.
Does it tell you?
Talis gadol refers to the talis we wear during davening.
I know that. But can he make it out of something else? Or does it have to be? Are there sizes? Are there stipulations of what it is?
We're going to learn tonight the minimum size that you need for a talis, with a minimum size.
Could he make it out of something else other than like, let's a big overcoat that puts?
But the reason why our talesim are wool. Remember, because there's lechatchila. Remember, we talked in the first couple of shiurim about what is the ideal garment. The ideal textile to use. And remember, l'chol hadayis, it's wool. So that's dafka why why the minig is to wear woolen talesim. So at least during davening, we're makayim all the shitas, the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. Remember, the Ramah allowed your tzitzis to be made out of cotton.
No, but let's say he has a wool overcoat. He puts tzitzis on it, and it's let's say it has just like a wool with 4 corners. He puts it and use that as a talis gadol.
Okay.
Can that possible? He could do it. It's a black. Let's say a black overcoat that has 4 corners. Puts talis tzitzis on it. Can you use that as a talis gadol?
It is a talis gadol. It's not something you wear underneath your talis cotton. You wear underneath your clothing.
I know. I talk about an overcoat.
That would be a talis gadol.
Okay, that would be. So he's not just only restricted.
Have you ever seen anywhere where other than a regular talis?
No, I didn't.
So that's minig Yisrael is to wear a talis with the stripes. There's a reason for all of that, the coloring and the stripes. And by the way, take a look at Chabad. Their stripes are different than our stripes.
Okay.
So this is minig Yisrael.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Many people indeed wear their talis over their heads for the duration of the entire tefillah. We now understand the source for that. That's the Bach. Now, Rav Zalman Nechemia Goldberg, Zatzal, in the Mareh Bazak, that's the Shilas and Shuvas book that comes out from Eretz Chemda. Those of you who have it, I think I have 10 volumes. There are 10 volumes of Mareh Bazak. These are Shilas that come from all over the world, different Rabbanim in different places all over the world. They send it in to Eretz Chemda and they respond, and it's published. And I think it's up to 10 volumes. The Mareh Bazak. So they note that others customarily place the talis over their head only from Baruch, from the beginning of Birchas Kriyas Shema, because you accept Malchus Shemaim then. Yet a third custom is to place the talis over one's head from the beginning of Shemona Esrei. By the way, I see all of these minhagim in our shul. Some people I see wear talis over their head the whole way. Some people only, my minhag is to put it on, and it's from early on, from once I was married. The minhag was to put it on by Baruch. Some people put it on by Shemona Esrei. All of these minhagim are minhagim noted by the Tzurba.
Interesting, Ernie. I think you remember there is a specific minhag to put a talis over the head for the shliach tzibur that's davening slichos.
Yes, because of the there's a Gemara that says that Moshe Rabbeinu saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a talis over his head, and he read for him the Yud Gimel Midos, and it says when you need a Torah, so ein chanami. That we see very clearly that the Shliach Tzibur by Slichas wears it. I see the most shuls, and they demand, there's a hakpada that they want the Shliach Tzibur to put a talis over their head. I've been in shuls where they tell you that you got to put
I'm just saying, I'm looking at halachas, and like that one is clearly a source from the Gemara. Is there a specific source in the Gemara like that for Atifa Barosh?
Well, Chaim, we just went through the machlokas, the Gaonim and the Balaitur, regarding whether Atifa Lisatev Petzitzes refers to you have to cover your head with it or not. So the Balaitur said you don't. The Gaonim
I understand,
said
covering your head, but I'm not saying.
No. So we came out that you need at least Atifas Yishmaelim for Daladam, for the amount of take. So that's why I said when you first put on your talis and you cover your head with the Atifa, as we're going to see in a minute soon, you should have it at least over your head for at least 4 amas. Then you fulfilled all of the shitas. According to the Balait, you don't need it over your head at all.
I understand. I understand that. I understand what you're saying.
And there's no source.
My point is that
there was no source in the Gemara.
That's it. So there's a source in the Gemara for slichos specifically, but there's no source in the Gemara for general atifas Yishmaelim.
Well, no, except for the Gaonim said they compared it to what the Ovel has to do, and there it said it had to be Atifa, and there they quoted Shmuel said Ein Atifa Latifas Yishmaelim.
Okay,
that's
so
the connection.
They're using an asmachta. What are you using? It's not really the same level as a clear Gemara that says just like Moshe Rabbeinu, Kosh Baruch Hu covered his head.
Yeah, but there the Gemara doesn't say. The Gemara doesn't say, oh, during slichas. There later on, the later poskim talk about, the shliach tzibur during slichas should cover his head based on that Gemara. But the Gemara is not dealing with saying slichas. There were no slichas at the time of the Gemara. So I hear what you're saying. It's the same. Okay. It's also it's a weak. It's the same thing. It's not direct, which I think we're seeing tonight. That these are later halachas. It's not from the Gemara. So it says, see halacha psuka for other sources that do not agree with the position of the Bach, who said that you have to wear your talis over your head the whole davening, which is why the majority of people in shul don't cover their head with a talis, because they have poskim to rely on. The Od Yosef Chai, he requires covering one's head only during the Amida, the Keter Shem Tov, who reports that many in the Sephardic communities of London and Amsterdam did not cover their heads at all with a tallis. So there's really a large variety of minhagim and practices that we see here. The Torah offers additional details concerning how to properly perform atifa with the tallis. The derech atifa machzir beis tzitzios l'fanav v'beis tzitzios l'achrav. 2 tzitzis are in front, 2 tzitzis are in back. Shem esovev b'mitzvahs. In general, you want the 2 fringes in front, 2 fringes in the back, so you'll be covered with mitzvahs. And then you cover your head. Makaser rosho. Shelo yeh b'gili rosh. V'yivarech lisatev b'tzitzis. And then you make the bracha. As we saw above, the Shulchan Aruch holds that one must wrap the tallis around one's head, but atifas yishmelim is not necessary, which means you cover your head, and that's it. What about this whole thing that we do, or many of us do, where we throw it over our shoulders? Okay, that's atifas yishmelim, right? Atifas is not necessary, according to Balei. Nevertheless, the Piskei Teshuvos writes that according to many achronim, one should still perform atifas yishme'elim for Kabbalistic reasons. It's not Meker Adin. Minig Yisrael midorei doiros, lasois atifas yishme'elim, la'achar habracha latalis. Meaning, you don't do you put the tallis over your head and you say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haSheker la'at li'tatev b'tzitzis. After you make the bracha, then you do the atifas yishme'elim. La'achar habrachas. Uvikisvei Arizal izbir. Shenachona minig ma'od. It's a good minig. Shebezeh yotzi shitas ha'gaonim. Shetzorach atifas gemura. V'hainu katifas yishme'elim. We understand, says the Ari, that the Shulchan Aruch paskin, like the Bala Itur, that we don't make our din have to put a atifas yishme'elim. But you know what? The gaonim had such a shita, and it's nachon v'nachon to fulfill what the gaonim did. Lizman muat kashir hilach daled amis. So we stand there, we do it. We'll describe how we do it, and you stand there for daled amis. Achen kvar kosva achroinim lasos atifas shrem zuka hogen. Dainu shachelek ha'elyon shel hatallis mechaser rosho. The upper part of your tallis should be covering your head, umetzcho, and your forehead, ad lemala meha einayim, until above your eyes. Sharad, I can't. I'm teaching. No, I'm teaching. I teach at 8 o'clock, so I have to leave. Yeah, I can't talk now. I'll have to talk later. Sharad, or you guys talk, and I'll call you later. Okay. Right, the back portion of the talis, yichases rav agav, should cover the majority of your back, and then a mekabitz lefanav is dalad kanfos. You gather the 4 corners in front of you, umashlichin la'achorav me'al ktefas mois, and you throw it across your left shoulder. Umisatef b'chelek hatachton shel hatalis lefanav, be'ofen shemechases achazo mala nechotem. Right, so that the lower part of the talis is sort of covering your breast and up into your nose. Because remember, think about an Arab, right? They wear this thing up until their forehead and they have like their eyes sticking out. Nimtza shekol chelek gufo ha'elyon. So your upper body, utstade panav, and the sides of your face, upiv, your mouth, umitzcho, your forehead, mechusim betalis, v'raka einayim megulot. Only your eyes are visible. Think about a Muslim woman who goes out dressed in a burqa. Only their eyes are showing. So that's atifas yishme'elim. You should stand there for the amount of time it takes you to walk dal damas. Ve'elu anoagim l'shal shel chelek ha'elyon shel hatalis ad PM that the upper part of the talis should cover their mouth. Yesh lehem al mi li'smoch. Aval ha'mishashim hatalis arachazu mastir pneim legamrei. Those that cover their face completely, that's not good. Lav shapir avdi. The ein zatifas ishmeilim. Okay. The practice of atifas we have discussed so far can be understood easily with respect to putting on a talis, which is large enough to allow for this. But how does one perform atifa for a talis cotton, which is not big enough to wrap around much of one's body? The Shulchan Aruch acknowledges that true atifa indeed cannot be performed on our tzitzis nowadays. Nevertheless, he recommends at least performing a partial atifa in the following manner. Talitot ktanim shelanu, she'anu noagim lilbosh, Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim Ches. Afal pi she'en behem ituf, even though we don't wrap them around our bodies, yotze behem yidei chovas tzitzis, we are yotze tzitzis with them. Tov la'niach oto al rosho, rochvo lekomoso. You first should place it on your head the long way, wrap yourself in it, and stand in that manner. Then you put it through your head until you wear it, and put it in the front and the back, and that's the derech to put it on. Now, despite the suggestion of the Shulchan Aruch, the common minhag today is not to perform atifa when donning tzitzis. Another issue related to the difficulty of performing atifa with tzitzis relates to the text of the bracha. As mentioned at the beginning of this year, the bracha when putting on tzitzis is lisatei tzitzis. Since true atifa is not technically possible with a talis cotton, the Rishonim dispute whether the proper formulation for the bracha on tzitzis should in fact include the word lisatev. According to Shulchan Aruch, one still recites lisatev tzitzis. According to the Ramah, one recites al mitzvah tzitzis. Says the Shulchan Aruch al talis cotton, yochel avarch lisatev. Afal pi she'eino lisatev ela lovsho. Says the Ramah, yeshoimim shemavarchim alav al mitzvah tzitzis. V'chein noagin ve'en l'shamis. And somebody asked a few weeks ago, and I said we're going to get to this in terms of what the bracha. What's the timing about putting on our tzitzis at home and the talis gadol at shul, right? So, with respect to the timing of the bracha, it is evident from the previously quoted source that one recites the bracha before donning the talis cotton or tzitzis, just like all other mitzvahs. Oiver lasiyosan, right, upon which one recites a bracha before performing them. The source of that is Psachim 7b. But the Shulchan Aruch notes that if one is unable to recite the bracha before donning the tzitzis at home, such as if he puts them on before performing the Netilas Yadayim in the morning, he can finger them in his hands afterwards, after Netilas Yadayim, and then recite the bracha, even though you would like to do it before you put the tzitzis on. Alternatively, he may exempt himself from the bracha with the bracha recited later upon the talis. So you can wash your hands, put on your lapsadekel, your talis cotton, go to shul, and when you make your bracha on the talis gadol, you cover both. And you don't get into this problem of al mitzvah tzitzis, but I mean, you could do netilas yadayim and make a bracha al mitzvah tzitzis when you put your talis cotton on. And you can go to shul and make a bracha lisatei tzitzis when you put your talis gadol on.
Ernie, why is it that you make the bracha overlay asiyasan on the tzitzis, but not on the tilas yadayim? Why is the tilas yadayim only after you wash your hands?
Because you're not allowed to. You can't invoke the name of Hashem with dirty hands. So that's the one exception. Virtually all mitzvahs is oiver lasiyasan. It's learned from the Gemara. And Gemara is Zion, Psachim Zion Amud Beis, from a pasuk. It's a limud there. So before you shake the lulav, that's why, Bernie, you have the pitim upside down. And therefore you make the bracha, it's over. And then because if you picked it up, you'd already been yotzei. So you have to have the pitum upside down. You haven't been yotzi your lulav yet. You make your bracha and then you put it on and you shake it. And virtually every other bracha is the same thing. You make your bracha tefillin, and then you're kosher your tefillin.
I think one exception is the Eish by Havdalah or Maria Esh.
What do you mean?
You light the candle. You're saying a guffin.
Yeah, but Chaim, you make the bracha and then you benefit from it by looking at your fingernails. So that's the bracha. But Amoira Eish, you're thanking Hashem. You created fire that Odom Harishon created Saturday night for its utility. So Enochanami, when you light it, there's that you have the mitzvah is then when you look at when you distinguish between your finger and your fingernail. That's why you make the bracha and then you do.
Oh, maybe it's Ner Hanukkah and Shabbos lahadlik Ner. You're doing it the bracha beforehand.
No, you say bracha lahadlik Ner shel Chanukah and then we light. We don't light after
There was the exception. Okay.
No, so we said he brought up Natilas Yadayim. There's other. Remember the mikvah. Remember when you went into the mikvah, we went through it. The woman makes the bracha after she's toivel.
Ernie, from a practical point of view, when you do putting on your tefillin shel yad, are you making the bracha on tefillin shel yad before you actually put the strap around your bicep?
You hold the knot. You
first put it on.
You put it on before you kosher it. You say laniach tefillin, and then you do it.
Okay.
Same principle. Oiver lasiyosim.
Yeah, that's the minhag. Yes.
No, it's not. This is
It's
not
halacha.
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 All brachas have to be done over lasiyosim prior to their performance. Bracha Hashem ala chilas matzah, and then you eat.
So women
There's actually another
for Shabbos. When does she make the?
Leishay b'sukkah, we do the same thing, Chaim. You stand, and then you say brother leishay b'sukkah, and you sit. But
A woman-
because there it's tied to kiddush. It's more complicated there. Go
Ernie,
ahead.
but by the yekkers,
Yes.
they wash their hands, they go
Yes.
make kiddush, and then they say Hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Yes, but that's how is that not over las yosin? The brach of amotz, the birchas hakiddush is the birchas mitzvah. But there that's the machlokes peishana.
But it says chadas. No,
When you say boyer priyag, no, you want to say is it a hefsek? Why is it a hefsek?
yeah, it's like there's a.
So that's like Tol Brook for the yekis, like Walter's saying. It's like somebody makes a nitilas yadayim. You can say bring the salt, and it's not considered a hefsek,
right.
Or you make a motzi because Tol Brook. So those that hold that it's the same like Tol Brook there. Okay, very good.
A woman makes bench lech. She makes the bracha before she lights it, or she lights it and then makes the bracha. Well, when she benches lech Friday night, because when she lights.
So that's remember we learned that they light, they put it out, then they light again to make it better, and then it's as if they close their eyes. We went through that. The reason for why they close their eyes is to make it as if because once they light, if they make the bracha, it's already
Shabbos.
That's why there they light, then they close their eyes, and it's like they're trying to recreate oiver lasiyosin because they're just now seeing the light.
Oh.
That was the one I was talking about.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
There's actually one other exception. It's an interesting one, and that's for a convert when they go to the mikveh. They make the bracha after the tefillah, and that's because before that they don't have the status of a Jew, and they can't make a bracha. So it's a little bit of a cute trivia question, but that's another example of where it's an exception to overlap.
Absolutely. So
We had that in Hilos Gerus also.
say again.
Then we had that in Hilos Gerus also.
We had it. So let me see where we are here. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim Ches. Im loivesh talit katan, V'od she'en yadav nikiyot. A person who put on his talis, cotton, before he went to wash his hands. So yil b'shenu below bracha. You can't say Shem of Hashem without netilas yadayim. U'chsheyitol yadav yemashmesh b'tzitzis v'yivarach alav. So after netilas yadayim, you should feel the tzitzis, and then you can make the bracha. O k'sheyil bash talis acher yivarach alav. Right? If you're going to wear a talis later on, make a bracha on it. V'yichavin liftor gam et zeh. Ve'in tzarich l'mashmesh b'tzitzis shel rishon. And that's how a lot of people do it. They rely on the bracha of the talis gadol and shul to pater their tzitzis that they put on at home. Now, what about hesach hadas? Shulchan Aruch lists. I think that's a lozer. There's three things that one must do prior to reciting the bracha upon tzitzis or a talis. First, you have to separate the tzitzis strings from each other. Then you have to have intent to fulfill the mitzvah and to remember all the mitzvahs as stated in the Torah. You have to inspect the tzitzis strings to ensure that they are kosher. And Shulchan Aruch says it in Or Chaim Ches. Tzorach lafrid chutei hatzitzis zeh mizeh. Yechaven bihitatfo shetzivan HaKadosh Baruch Hu lisatev bo k'dei shenizkor kol mitzvosav lasos. We have to have in mind when you put on the tzitzis before you make the bracha that the tzitzis are supposed to remind us of all the mitzvahs. Kodem sheyivarach yain b'chutei hatzitzis mem ksherim k'dei shlo yivarach levatolo. We learned last week in detail that which puzzles, which invalidates the tzitzis if they're torn, if they're not the right length. So that's the time to check the tzitzis to make sure that if you make the bracha, you don't make a bracha levatolo. The Achronim question why the Shulchan Aruch explains the reason for inspecting the tzitzis as due to concern for a bracha levatolo. If the tzitzis are puzzle, you'd be neglecting a Torah obligation to wear tzitzis on a four-cornered garment. Meaning you'd be wearing a four-cornered garment without tzitzis on it, right? If one of the strings were missing. So you're being mavatal and asay. So the Mishnah Berurah explains that one may rely on the chazaka, the presumption that the tzitzis are kosher with regard to the status of the garment, but not with regard to reciting a bracha levatolo. Even though if you don't check it, the strings, maybe you're going to wear a garment without a dalet kanfus garment without tzitzis. We rely on the chazak that's kosher. Rak mishum chomer deloisisa, right? Loisisa Shem Hashem Elokecha lashav. Don't take God's name in vain. Sheyesh al bracha v'atola chmir lebotko. The chumrah to check it is because of the severity of bracha levatol. Lachein tzarich livdok b'chol yom b'boker k'shalov sham v'az af shesiyim v'siyach daito mehen. So if you later remove them, you don't think about it. Afilo lachein tzarich lachzor v'livdok. Divizman muat kazein or rogili fosek for some china chazaka. They're not going to break in such a short time. So again, we rely on the chazaka that they're kosher. If the checking is going to take him so long that he's going to miss tefillah b'tzibur, or shekaru lalos l'toira, or let's say he doesn't have time because they called him up for an aliyah, yachalil bosh talisa b'li b'dika, as long as he remembers that the strings were okay yesterday. What about shechianu? If you buy a new talis or a new pair of tzitzis, do you make a bracha shechianu? So Rav Yalkut Yosef, Rav Yosef addresses this. Al talis chadasha mevarchin brachas shechianu. He says on a new talis, you make a bracha shechianu. Umevarchim koidim l'satef v'tzitzis. V'achar kach birchas shechianu. Ve'im b'zeh kol chashash hefsek. There's no hefsek between the bracha and the atifa by saying shechianu in between. V'chein aminik, ulama oisat tzitzios chadashos l'talis yishana, einam avar shechianu. Let's say you have an old garment, but you're hanging new strings. That's not a reason for shechianu. Yishomim shadavkim konet talis gadol l'var shechianu. It's only a big talis that deserves shechianu. Aval al talis cotton, einam avar shechianu. Afilu me talis asur mi bad toiv, even though if it's made from a very expensive textile. You don't make shechianu on a talis cotton made out of cotton. In fact, the custom is not to recite shechianu on any small talis. In the continuation of this piece, the Yalkut Yosef writes that those who organize programs and seminars for Balei Tshuva or non-observant Jews may distribute tzitzis and have them recite a bracha of shechianu on them if this inspires them in their Judaism. He explains that in this case, it is permitted to rely upon the opinions that permit reciting shechianu upon new tzitzis. Also, the reason for the ruling about not reciting shechianu on a talis cotton is that many individuals no longer recite shechianu upon purchasing any new clothing, since it does not provide a person with the same level of joy that it may have provided in earlier times due to our more affluent life cycle. Thus, the Yalkut Yosef rules that practically one may recite shechianu upon wearing a new talis, but ideally one should not recite it upon a new pair of tzitzis. And the Piskei Teshuvas paskins the same way. Now, many of us, we take off our talis temporarily, or the talis falls off. What happens with regarding making another bracha? We have seen in the first part of the shir that one recites a bracha upon putting the tzitzis or talis in the morning. Must one recite a bracha as well if one removes either of them for a short time and then puts them back on? Let's say you're going to exercise. Let's say you don't want to get the talis, the tzitzis wet from perspiration. So you take them off and then you're going to put them back on. V'imposha taliso. You took it off, the talis, and you didn't have in mind to put it back on immediately. When you put it on again, you have to make a bracha again. If your intent is to put it on right away, like you went to the bathroom, you're just taking it off the talis temporarily, says the tour, Bazani mistapik im tzarech levarach. Sheyesh ponim lakan lakan. The ikalamei markiv and the alfinan kol haTorah mitfilin. Since the entire Torah is learned from tefillin, where tefillin is compared to the rest of the Torah, and the Torah's juxtaposition of the mitzvah of tefillin to the mention of the Torah as a whole, that just as women are exempt from tefillin, which is a time-bound mitzvah, so too are they exempt from all other time-bound mitzvahs. So, kivan the alfina kol haTorah mitfilin, because the learning all the dinim of mitzvah cessation as man grama was learned from tefillin. Utfillin kolemis to mishmashresh bu mavarech. Whenever you touch your tefillin, you make another bracha perush. Im zazum im koiman. Let's say the tefillin moved. Umimashresh ben lachzir lim koiman. You move them back. Im kain. So here by tzitzis, by taking off your talis temporarily, according to the sheet of tefillin, that you have to make a bracha when you just move it around, you should certainly have to do it with talis. Miu yesh loymar, the shiny awesome shezaz bim koiman v'loyada shlayim bim koiman. That's only if you moved it from the place you didn't know that they were in their place. If you moved it with the intent to move it right back, the tour leans towards this, and therefore leans towards the concept that if you take off your talis temporarily or the bathroom, you don't need to make a bracha again. The Tur is unsure whether a hefsek in this context is defined as an actual interruption during the performance of the mitzvah, or is an interruption merely in the person's focus and concentration on the mitzvah. According to the first approach, you would cite a new bracha when removing a talis or tzitzis and then putting it back on. While according to the second approach, which he is inclined to accept, you don't need to recite a new bracha in such a case, since he intended to put it on right away. So the Beis Yosef, right, the commentary on the Tur, concludes that regard to this matter, there is no distinction between tefillin and tzitzis. The Gemara in Sukkah 46a clearly states that if one removes one tefillin, one must recite another bracha when donning them again, even if he intended to do so, even if he removed the tefillin with the intent to do so. The same applies to tzitzis as well. The Augur suggests an in-between approach that if one's tzitzis are still on, one would not recite another bracha when removing a talis, meaning you're wearing your talis cotton. You take off your big talis, but you're still wearing tzitzis, then putting it back on. While if one was not wearing tzitzis, then one would recite another bracha again. The Shulchan Aruch rules that one should indeed recite a bracha when removing tzitzis or talis, and then putting them on again, like he learned in the Beis Yosef. The Ramah, though, cites the opinion of the Tur not to recite a bracha, and the Augur not to do so if one is still wearing tzitzis. The Impartia Taliso says the Mechaber, says the Ramah, the Yeshomim Shem Mevarchim Amaya Daitu Laus V'Satif Bo, the Yeshomim Davke Kishni Shalav Tais Cotton V'Achino Agim. And the Mishnah Berurah rules that the accepted halacha is that no bracha is recited if one did not lose his mental focus. And the Ramah's point concerning the talis cotton applies only when one removes the talis without intent to wear it again. In this case, one would still not recite another bracha later if one was wearing tzitzis. Similarly, the Mishnah Berurah adds that if one removed the talis with intent to put it on much later, one must recite another bracha, since when one removes it, one is considered to have as a chadas. Meaning, like I always think about when we take off our talis after Musaf Yom Kippur, we go home for 2-3 hours, and we come back, we do make another bracha. Even though we had in mind to do it, but that's an assumed that's a chadas. But the Ramah would say, if you're going to the bathroom, put it on, take it off, and you know that you're going to put it back on again, and especially if you're wearing a tzitzis, a talis cotton, then you don't have to make another bracha. According to this analysis, the Shulchan Aruch, who holds that one must recite another bracha, would argue that one must recite another bracha even without any hesach hadas. Nevertheless, the Yalkut Yosef writes that in practice, even Sfardim should not recite a bracha, since this is a case of suffix brachos, an uncertainty whether it recites a bracha. And in his opinion, one applies the principle of suffix brachos lahakel, not reciting a bracha in cases of uncertainty, even where the Shulchan Aruch rules that one does recite the bracha. Hapoish, says the Yalkut Yosef, Hapoish talito al das lazar satev po. Someone takes off his talis and he has in mind to put it back on. If it's within 30 minutes, so within 30 minutes, you don't have to make another bracha. He took it off. He has intent to return it and wear it. Exactly our point that we made on Yom Kippur. Many of us leave our talis in shul, come back. We clearly have to make another bracha. Va'afilu in posha talito stam, lo chashav azim yachzor v'shenim yad lo. He just took it off. He didn't have any kind of thought. Lo yachzor v'archalav afilu ein alav talis kot. If he puts it back on, he should make another bracha, even if he doesn't have a talis cotton on. A posha talito, if he took it off, the kipeloto, and you folded it, that not no betoch kisa talis, and you put it in your talis bag. V'lo chashav v'im yachzor l'lov sholo. He had no thought of putting it back on or not. Kiven shekipel atalis, havale ki'ilu chashav b'feiru shehu poishto al das shelo l'achzor l'lov sholo. That's a basic understanding that you're taking it off without intent to put it back on. And it's a hesech hadas automatically. In such a case, of course, if he wears it again, he has to make a bracha. You can loan your talis to your friend who is called for an aliyah. O lalos l'duchen. When he's finished with the aliyah or duchen, he gives it back to you. You don't have to make another bracha. So there's another number of nice examples that he gives us where he claims that we don't need to make another bracha. What about if your talus falls off? According to the opinion of Shulchan Aruch, if one's talus accidentally fell off, it would seem that one would be required to recite another bracha when putting it on again, since you did not intend to remove it. This is in fact the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch. Im nafla talito shlom miskavin, v'choizer misatev, tzarek levarech, v'hu shenafla kula, that if it fell off completely. Avadim lo nafla kula, afal pi shenafla ruba in tzarek levarech. And that's how the Mishnah Berurah paskins. Tzarech levarech afilim lo shovim nafal imenu be'emtzat tfilas yud ches. If it fell in the middle of Shmona Esrei, and let's say other people put it on him, when he finishes Shmona Esrei, he should feel his tzitzis and make another bracha. However, the Yalkut Yosef writes that in this case, if a tal is falling off, he also would not recite a bracha, which is again in opposition to the opinion of Shulchan Aruch. Im nafla talisu ma'alav afilu nafla gamri, v'choizer misatev po, ein tzarech lazar levarech. He doesn't have to make another bracha. Yeshoimim shim nafla talisu be'emtza tefillah shmona esrei v'chzinu ra'cherim olav. Other people put it back on him. Kishi yisayim tefillah shmona esrei yimashvit b'tzitz v'varech. V'ledidon ein levarech, the suffix brachos lahakil. What is the minimum size for a garment to be subject to the obligation of tzitzis? How large must the tzitzis garment be considered kosher? If a minor can cover his head and the majority of his body, or an adult goes out in public wearing it, so there's two criteria for determining whether a garment is large enough to be subject to the obligation of attaching tzitzis. If it's large enough for a child to cover his head and most of his body, or an adult goes out wearing it occasionally. Now, it's not entirely clear, though, as to the relationship between these criteria. Are they identical? And if not, are both required? The Torah indicates that these are two distinct criteria, both of which are required. Shir talis, l'schayv b'tzitzis. What's the shir garment in order to be chayv b'tzitzis? Kol shekotin ben teisha shanim, a 9-year-old boy, yachol chasus barosh v'rubo, covers his majority of his body and his head, and a gadol einu mishbayis latzis po bakoi, l'shtuk. An adult would go out temporarily with such a garment. Ein hakot miskas barosh v'rubo, afal pisha gadol yotze bo bakoi l'shtuk p'tura. So you see, you need both requirements. By contrast, the Beis Yosef quotes the Ma'ari ben Chaviv, who writes that based upon the Rambam, there's only one condition, that the child must be able to cover his head and most of his body. In the Beis Yosef's opinion, the mention of the second criteria only serves to describe the case further. It's not considered an additional criteria. Kosova Mari Chaviv, Lo Nemer Baloshen Zeh, Shir Talis L'Schai B'Tzitzis Eloton Rabbanon Tol Shakot Miskas B'Rosh B'Rubo, HaKavanah Mititl Zot HaBaraita, the intent of this brisa, Lohoros Ma'yaseh Godol HaYotze B'Kroi B'Tos Ketana, Im Yischai B'Tzitzis Olo. What is the din? The obligation of the adult who goes out wearing such a small garment, is it chayv and tzitzis or not? If the minor uses the garment to cover his head and most of his body, then the adult would be chayiv in tzitzis, even if he goes on temporarily. But if it doesn't cover the child, the Yotzeba Gadol Bakroy, Ptura, the Yachalatzis Babelot Tzitzis. Elish Rabbeinu Yaakov, the Tur, Rotzel Haskil, Beloshon Aram, the Rambam, Lusayim, Beloshon Abraisov, Zen, Nosan Michshol, Fanebel Shono, Lefapel, Chutz Ben Emes. So the Shulchan Aruch rules in accordance with the Rambam, as he often does. Thus, the requirement of tzitzis depends entirely upon whether it covers the child sufficiently. The Ramah follows the Tur and adds that the description of an adult wearing it occasions additional requirement for the garment to be subject to the requirement of tzitzis. Okay. We'll leave off these last few halachas till next week. Next week, Mirz Hashem, we'll start with tchelas. What's the din of tchelas on tzitzis? And perhaps we will begin the tefillin.
Does the Talis Cotton have the same kedusha as the Talis Gadol?
Absolutely. In terms
Then
of
why can we go to the bathroom with the Talis Cotton in? We should remove it when we go to the bathroom also. Then the same way Talis Gadol, you take it off.
But it's underneath our garments.
Yeah, but how about people that wear it over the garments? A lot of people wear it over.
By the way, we learned befeirush that it's not a problem going into a bathroom. We discussed this. It's not a problem.
Today's
And
bathrooms.
then we also said that there isn't enough kamina between putting the tzitzis and the shemus. Here on page 177, how do you dispose of the tzitzis? The Mishnah Berurah wrote in 14 that one is only allowed to enter the bathroom with a taz cotton, but not with a taz cotton. The purpose of the limitation is to prevent disrespect to a garment used specifically for tefillah, and talis cotton is not used specifically for tefillah. Elazar, did you hear that?
I heard you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, although do people wear talisim all day without tefillah? Are there people that do people wear talisim all day without minyan, without tefillah? They
Not
take
the
it
time
off.
of that. It was a time, right in the time of the Gemara of Yochanan walked around all day with talis and tefillin.
Yeah.
But we don't have people like that. You have to have a guf naki, etc., etc. So talis is usually worn during tefillah.
So that's why I look at. Sure.
Ernie, I was just by Rab Nivensal, and Rab Nivensal walks around with tefillin the whole day. I was last week by him, and he walks around with tefillin the whole day.
But he wasn't wearing talis, right?
No.
Interesting. Interesting.